COVID in the country. This is another busy week for the government as the economic recovery from the virus continues. Parliament today is sitting, and so obviously I'm present and will be again tomorrow. Tomorrow I have my regular meeting with the Farming Leaders Group, where I'll be checking in on the sector's response to COVID, job opportunities in the agricultural sector also for those displaced by the virus, and just generally a look at our health of our exporters. On Thursday, I will visit Kaikoura with the government's tourism recovery package as a focus. And on Friday, I have an economic recovery related visit in Auckland. Today, Cabinet discussed in very broad terms our alert level decision-making timetable. The good news is, as I have flagged earlier today, we are ahead of schedule. Previous advice and modelling had assumed a more persistent and potentially longer tail of cases, which under our significantly more open settings at level 2, especially with large gathering sizes we have in New Zealand compared to other countries, posed a real risk of further spread, hence our caution to date. Many other countries have experienced spikes in cases when lockdown restrictions have been eased, and that is what we have been keeping a close eye on at level 2. So far, that tail or spike has not eventuated, and there is increasing optimism that we will not see any cases within the transmission cycle since moving to level 2. In fact, as of today, we have had only one case of COVID recorded in the country, while at the same time having some of the most relaxed settings in the world, at least according to Oxford University. Our strategy of going hard and early has paid off, and in some cases beyond expectation and what modelling and data had predicted. Therefore, because of our team of 5 million's extraordinary commitment to beating COVID, that means we have the enviable situation of having choices, and we could well be in a position to move to level 1 even earlier than planned. I can confirm that Cabinet will now fully review the alert level settings at its next meeting on Monday, June 8. If and only if there are no further unexpected cases over the coming days, then we could be in a position to move to alert level 1 that week. I'll be providing further details of alert level 1 this week in terms of what it looks like, but in short, the last remaining restrictions on physical distancing and restrictions on mass gatherings are removed, though we will need to maintain strict border controls to prevent any new infections arriving from overseas. And moving to level 1 so soon, we will be one of the first countries in the world to have experienced a COVID outbreak and then return to that level of normality so quickly. And I think our whole team should feel very proud of that. For now, however, there is a risk we need to continue to monitor. With crowd sizes only moving to 100 over the weekend, we will keep an eye on numbers through this week, especially the end of the week, to see if new cases come through, and we'll be also looking closely at the results of testing of people with respiratory symptoms to see if any of these infections are due to residual COVID-19 in our communities, and keeping in mind again the ongoing caution we have due to the issue of asymptomatic transmission. Today, Education Minister Chris Hipkins joins me to set out the details of the free trades training and apprenticeship package announced in the budget. Supporting New Zealanders who lose their job because of the virus is at the heart of our economic response. There have already been significant job losses, and there will be many more in the coming months. Unfortunately, the economic damage caused by the virus is something every country is experiencing and not something we can avoid. However, we can avoid leaving people behind, and we can ensure New Zealanders and their families are supported. You will have heard me speak before a number of times of my memories of big job losses in the 80s and 90s when unemployment was also high. That memory is etched in my mind and informs my values and decisions today. That's why the government is so focused on job creation at this stage of the recovery, creating opportunities for those without work to move into something quickly. However, for many that will require retraining and getting new skills. So this trades package is an important part of our overall plan. It's about ensuring people can acquire skills and get jobs in the parts of the economy critical to our COVID rebuild, and can do that for free. Which is why we are announcing today that the package set out in the budget will mean any form of apprenticeship will be free from July 1 this year. This is a direct help to small businesses thinking about taking on an apprentice, and also ensures we are incentivising even more people entering the trades that we have skills shortages in. The theme of the budget was rebuilding together, and this investment in those who have lost their jobs and in the businesses taking on apprentices shows that plan in action. Businesses, workers and government working together to create jobs and fill skill shortages. I'll now hand over to Minister Hipkins.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The Trades Training and Apprenticeships Fund will support learners of all ages to undertake vocational education and training at no cost. The fund will initially target support for areas of study and training that will give learners the best opportunity to gain employment following COVID-19. Apprentices working in all industries will have their costs paid, and high demand areas, including regional New Zealand, will be targeted. We know that as a result of COVID-19, many New Zealanders will be looking to retrain and people will be needing to upskill as they seek redeployment. We're working very hard to connect both sides of that equation by making this process as simple and as practical as possible. So this is designed not for just school leavers, but for people of any age who are looking to change employment and retrain as the circumstances in their life have changed. Every course is different, but the cost for learners at tertiary providers or industry trainees and apprentices can be between $2,500 to $6,500 per year, and we will be covering all of that cost. Apprentices and learners whose course started earlier this year, but continues beyond the 1st of July, will be eligible for a partial refund for the period beyond the 1st of July. We're moving very quickly to put this in place by the 1st of July, recognising the fact that we need to respond to the changing nature of the labour market. The fields that we will initially be covering include all of the primary industries and the building, construction and civil engineering industry, community support, which includes things like youth work, care for the elderly, counselling and community and mental health, manufacturing and mechanical engineering and technology, electrical engineering and road transport. Of course, we know we've got some skill shortages in areas like truck driving and bus driving that we can fill reasonably quickly if we can train people quickly enough for those. For 2021, we will refine those initial areas as we better understand how COVID-19 has affected the overall workforce. This package sits alongside the Employer Apprenticeship Subsidy Scheme, which we'll be announcing more details of shortly. Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Ron. Questions? Yeah, Barry.
Given the widespread protest yesterday and the thousands of people around the country, hasn't the government effectively lost authority when it comes to the restrictions on crowd sizes?
No.
Or why not?
Well, obviously, we've put in place the rules. It's up to the police how they determine to enforce them. But just as we had some rules broken in Alert Level 4, it is no reason for us to abandon what are restrictions that have been put in place for the health and safety of all New Zealanders.
Shouldn't the police's job is to enforce these regulations? They didn't do their job yesterday.
And that is their job, and so I will not be passing comment on what is their job. Those are operational decisions for them.
Minister, why didn't the Cabinet decide or make a decision on whether to move to level 1 today? Why are you postponing it to next week, given that we've had 0 cases for
And of course, we only moved to mass gatherings of 100 or more on Friday. And all the way through this, we have said that what is best for business is getting our response right. That once we get to level 1, we want to stay there. And keep in mind that there is still concerns amongst the scientific and health community around asymptomatic transmission. So this is about a balanced decision. We have brought it forward, but not so far forward that we risk the gains we've made.
What if Bloomfield isn't recommending that those people who attended the protest self-isolate or anything like that? Haven't we isn't that giving the people licence to flout the rules now?
No, it's not. Of course, you were asking for his health advice on what was required now, and of course he's making risk-based assessments that are for the health professionals, but of course he also maintains the view that we still need to keep restrictions on mass gatherings at 100.
What do you think of your deputy campaigning to move to Alert Level 1 earlier?
Oh, look, that's a view that the Deputy Prime Minister has expressed to me both privately and publicly. He had a view that we should move as of Monday. Obviously, my job is to balance, of course, all of the advice that we receive from the scientists who remain concerned about moving at a pace that can ensure that we don't go backwards. And so my job is to build that consensus.
Is it time to vote the agree to disagree measures in the Cabinet Manual?
Again, as I've said, we had a consensus decision, although there was an alternate view presented by some members at the Cabinet table.
Do you think that Deputy Prime Minister breached Cabinet confidentiality by revealing whether or not this was going to be discussed in Cabinet today, and also with his discussion about what he thought versus what was decided?
No. Again, having seen some of the comments, I don't believe that that is what has happened here. There was some confusion last week when he was actually referring to comments I had already made in the public domain that was assumed to have been comments I made at Cabinet. But no, I do not believe he has.
Isn't it a confusing message, though, when you've got the Deputy Prime Minister? Yes, he wears several hats, but he is the Deputy Prime Minister sending a message we should be at level 1. Doesn't that just create confusion?
And I think we should be here to the Deputy Prime Minister. He does have a different view, and he is being open about that view. He is, however, not advocating that anyone break the rules that are currently in place. The rules are there for a reason. The rules are there to ensure people are kept safe and well, and that we don't go backwards. Once we move to Alert Level 1, which we are potentially on track to do, sooner than almost any other country in the world, the most important thing for our economy is we don't go backwards.
Isn't the time an important time when Cabinet should be speaking with one voice?
And often there will be differences of opinion around the table, but ultimately we have formed consensus. There is a balanced position here that is about making sure we do not slide backwards. That would be the worst thing for our economy possible.
Have you been happy with the Deputy Prime Minister's conduct through this most recent alert level? Do you feel that, regardless of whether or not he's breached the letter of the Cabinet Manual, do you feel that he's acted in good faith?
Yeah, ultimately I was aware of his view, and I was aware that he intended to share that view publicly. It will not surprise people in this room to know that from time to time the Deputy Prime Minister and I will take a different view, and colleagues around the Cabinet table will take a different view.
Isn't the message from Ashley Bloomfield today that there's no need to self-isolate for any of these protesters, effectively saying the 100 gathering limit
No.
is... no, why not?
I've already explained an answer to that.
Haven't.
Barry, of course, Ashley Bloomfield has not changed his views that the cumulative risk of mass gatherings above 100, when we still run the risk of asymptomatic transmission, is not advisable at this stage. It does not, however, translate that he's therefore asking everyone who may have been at a mass gathering to then self-isolate. It does not change his view that there is still too much risk for us to have large-scale gatherings at this stage.
So do you think Donald Trump is racist?
It's not for me to make conclusions about other people's characters, particularly of other world leaders. It is my job to make sure that we reflect our values in New Zealand.
Do you have a personal view on it, though? Do you think he's
I have a
racist?
view on the incident, which I've already shared.
On the issue of racism in America, is it time for us to have a look at our own backyard and the systemic racism within our own police towards law?
It is our duty to constantly look at our own backyard, and we should never shy away from that. And of course you have seen the police going through a journey of addressing a number of issues, and including whether or not they have enough diversity within the police force. That is an area where they have been making gains, but I don't think our New Zealand police, or even indeed New Zealand, would ever claim perfection, but they would say they have a job to do.
Examples for with the ART, for example, that was conducted in highly populated Māori Pacific communities on the back of March 15.
Yeah, so the armed response trials were trialled in Auckland, in Waikato and Canterbury. Obviously that was a decision made by the police. That did not stop ministers and MPs expressing concerns that they had with those trials. They were trials. They've now ceased. I know the Commissioner is waiting to make a judgment on what happens with their future, and we have inputted into that in the same way that I know many communities are too.
Thinking internationally, I think it's only Taiwan and Japan of developed nations that have fewer restrictions on gatherings than New Zealand. Is there some frustration from you that other people, namely the Deputy Prime Minister and the opposition leader, are taking a more rounded approach? Or
look, you know, for the most part, New Zealanders and what they'll be experiencing day to day is actually very close to normality. You know, with the exception, of course, of those who may attend mass gatherings on a routine basis, like our faith community, most New Zealanders will feel like life feels relatively normal to them. And that is actually a reflection of the fact that we have broadly opened up the economy, roughly about 5% down on what you'd usually see. And so for most people, it will feel pretty normal. It also won't surprise you to hear that as the Prime Minister in a government with 3 parties, I am used to differences of opinion. Anna, and then Justin.
Do New Zealanders get enough sick leave?
This is an issue that I have heard in recent times representatives from the Council of Trade Unions raise. We are not currently reviewing sick leave provisions. We did make specific provision, though, for the extended periods that COVID may represent. So we have been mindful of the circumstances we're in right now.
5 days a bit meagre, though.
Again, it's not something that we're specifically looking at this time, but we did make provision for the fact that COVID can represent a long period of leave for those who have it.
Border restrictions are going to continue under level 1. Are you concerned that there might be the appearance of 2 tiers appearing at the border now with this American crew who came in? It was 60 people. They were able to charter their own jet, fly to
Don't
where
believe it was quite that number, but sorry, continue.
They're able to charter their own jet, fly to where they wanted to fly. They didn't go into a government-run hotel. They rented suites in a luxury hotel. Are there now
It was
systems?
still government approved. The Ministry of Health still maintains oversight of anywhere that someone is using for quarantine purposes, and they are still monitoring and providing the security around that because we have to maintain the integrity of our border. So that's the first point. They are paying for their accommodation costs, though, and I should add that. The second point to make here is that, of course, we have a dual process at the moment. We are providing exemptions for those who, for humanitarian reasons, for connections to loved ones, are applying to come in outside of those who are already able to come in. So citizens and those with residence class visas can come in. Others can apply. We've had over 2,000 people coming in for those reasons, and it's more like 150 for economic reasons. So you can see we're trying to manage both at the same time.
Minister, are you satisfied with the...
I should correct myself here. Over 2,000 approved. They may not have necessarily come in yet.
Are you satisfied with the length of time it's taking at the moment for people to get tested for COVID-19?
No. And I should add, that's not because of the processing, but because of sometimes how long it's taking for stoic New Zealanders to determine they should have a test. Every day someone has symptoms and doesn't get a test is a day we lose for contact tracing. So I cannot enforce enough how important that is for the success of our contact tracing regime.
They're meeting that process requirement of 80% of swabs in 48
Yes, now keeping in mind, of course, since we've been scaling up the system, we've been in lockdown and then eased lockdown and we've had very few cases. But yes, I have confidence in those elements of the system. Where I still have concerns is the time we're losing when people are making decisions over getting a test. Okay, I'll just check whether or not anyone, given I'm getting a repeat of who. Yep.
How likely is it, Minister Hitkins, that international students will be allowed into New Zealand either under level 1 or 2?
We're currently working with international education providers to discuss what a quarantine arrangement would look like for international students coming into New Zealand. So we're working as quickly as we can there to give them as much certainty as possible. But the key test will be we've got to have robust quarantine arrangements in place before we would look to open the border for incoming international students.
What assurances can you give or would you need from universities before allowing them to bring potentially thousands of international students here?
Well, among other things, that there's a very robust quarantine arrangement in place and that we're not risking the significant gains we've made over the last 2 months by potentially bringing in people who might spread COVID-19 through coming through the border.
Okay.
Key thing, just the quarantine.
That is the key thing.
Yeah. Jessica, last question.
How much should we read into those test numbers? They are really low. Yes, it was the long weekend, but is that because people aren't feeling nervous anymore?
Well, no, we do see it. I don't think it's it would be fair to judge based on a weekend or a long weekend. We saw even much earlier on over Easter a significant dip, and actually you see the same thing happen over the ditch as well. So let's wait till we get through the weekend period, see what kind of uplift we see, but we are proactively seeking from the Ministry of Health that they are still going out and continuing testing at high-risk areas such as our border to keep up that number of tests that we have. And I still encourage New Zealanders, if you feel sick, if you show any symptoms, please do get a test. Okay, thanks everyone.